Sometimes articulating the question that we are discerning can be the hardest part. We might assume that we know what the question is, when on further reflection we discover a deeper question emerging that may surprise us.
Sometimes the first question that we begin with in discernment is not actually the question that we are attempting to discern.
For example, we might be asking the question, how do we get more people to come into our church building and experience our worship with us? When really, upon further reflection, we discover that the question even deeper in us is, how do we engage more fully in relationship with people in our community to bring about peace and blessing in all dimensions of life?
Once you've worked at finding an attitude of freedom, and you've begun to articulate the question or the issue that is at hand as you're in a process of discernment, it's time now to really begin to gather the relevant information that you need to make an accurate decision.
The underlying assumption of gathering relevant data in the process of discernment is that everything is spiritual. Even our moments of research and reason and trying to figure out all of the details that might come into play in a decision, as well as weighing the realities of our own lives, paying attention again to consolation and desolation, those interior movements that speak to us of God's invitation.
Begin to think about what important pieces of information do you need to have in order to make an informed and faithful decision. How am I feeling as I imagine myself in any of these choices that are before me? What am I sensing in my body? What comes up in my imagination as I live into those possibilities that are among the choices that I might be making?
The next step in the discernment process, taking it all to prayer, invites us again to rest in the presence of God in the midst of all that we are discovering.
Obviously, in any position, in any question of discernment, we are engaged in a time of prayer throughout. We're praying for spiritual freedom. We're praying for the deeper question that is in front of us. And we're praying as we're imagining ourselves in all different kinds of possibilities. But there is also a time of very intentional resting with God, in which we gather up all that has taken place in our process of discernment up to that point and just hold it loosely and allow ourselves to take time to rest with God, without trying to work the issues, without trying to analyze, but simply to sit with God in the possibilities and see how you and God might be working together to create something new.
A helpful practice in my own life for coming to a tentative decision comes from the Ignatian spiritual tradition of prayerfully imagining that a decision has already been made and paying attention to how that feels deep within. There was a time in my life where I was trying to choose between two possible futures with my husband. We took a day each to pay attention to what it would be like if we would have said yes to either decision, and allowed ourselves to live in that possibility as if it had already happened. As we paid attention to what that yes meant in either scenario, we began to discover places in us that we hadn't felt before. And seeking confirmation, we spend time holding our tentative decision in prayer. It's easy to think that we've made a decision and want to take that next step and immediately rush to action. But the process of seeking confirmation is also an essential practice of the discernment process. We ask God if this is the most faithful decision that we could possibly make. We bring it to our trusted friends. We bring it to our community. We spend time simply being present with how that reality might unfold within us and around us as that decision is lived out.
But the confirmation comes as well in checking to see how congruent it is with your values and your faith decisions that you've made up to now. Does it fit with who you are and what you think God is doing in you? Does it fit with what you sense is most needed in the world? Does it fit with your gifts and your talents? And when those things begin to converge together, then that helps you make a decision about whether you have actually moved into a space that connects you with God's hope and dream for you and for the world.